In a foreign trade and goods statistics report for Q3, that's third quarter, released by the National Bureau of Statistics on Monday, the report stated that in the third quarter of 2022, Nigeria's total trade stood at 11.59 trillion. This was lower than the 12.84 trillion recorded the previous quarter, but higher than the 10.47 trillion recorded in the corresponding period of 2021. It said total exports stood at 5.93 trillion naira, of which re-exports were 25.04 billion naira, while total imports stood at 5.66 trillion naira. Nigeria's international trade fell to its lowest level since the third quarter of last year as a result of a huge decline in crude oil export earnings. Specifically, crude oil export fell by 21.2% to 4.66 trillion naira in third quarter 2022 from 5.91 trillion naira recorded in the previous quarter. But we're joined virtually by Isaac Adejumo, the head of investment, Skyview Capital. Good to have you join us today.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, let's have your take concerning the latest foreign trade numbers.
Okay. As you have just reported, the total value of trade, that is both export and import combined together, was 11.597 trillion in the third quarter of 2022, which was lower by 1.24 trillion compared to 12.84 trillion reported in the second quarter of 2022. The decline was majorly attributed to a decline in crude oil exports, which is as a result of a decline in crude oil production. You can agree with me that during the second quarter, the crude oil production, we experienced high level of oil thefts. So the crude oil production came down, sometimes to a low of about 900,000 a day. So per day.
Yeah, go ahead. I can hear you. But I guess that's connection issue. But of course, he's trying to break down the figure of what we just heard, talking about how that whatever figure we got in the third quarter of 2022 is as a result of a decreasing number of exports. That's for and he was also trying to explain how that in the last quarter, Nigeria did about 900,000. It hovered around 700 to 900,000 barrels per day. Please go ahead if you can hear me.
Okay, yes, I heard your voice. So that was what brought about almost 1.25 trillion decline in the value of crude oil export when you compare to the value exported in the second quarter of 2022. And if you look at that figure, between the second quarter, 7.4 trillion and the 5.8 trillion, you can see that the actual differential is from the crude oil export. And the value of import increased just marginally. So the total import increase, you can see that the bulk of the import is from refined petroleum products, which account for at least about 21% of the total value of imports. Well, generally, it is not as compared to the period of second quarter. It was not a good omen, and that is why you can see that when you look at your export decline significantly, the impact is also seen on the value of the foreign currency exchange rate compared to the naira, because once we are not having significant export where we can generate foreign currency, definitely the value of the naira will continue to depreciate. So that is...
Okay. You've mentioned a lot of things. You've talked about the depreciation in the value of naira as a result of the foreign exchange earnings, which of course we are not getting as much as we should. You've also talked about how that, we have dwindling, or we had dwindling production of oil. Of course, we have reports now that we're beginning to do about 1.5 million barrels per day, which some might say is good news. Now, talk to us about this. How can we fix this particular sector, saying that when we break down this number, the figure we have now, we see that the oil and gas sector is playing a very important role, in either bringing up or bringing down our numbers. Talk to us about addressing this. Do you think the government is doing enough to address the challenges we're having in this sector, knowing the ripple effect it will have at the end of the day on our GDP and on a lot of things, really?
Yes, the government commenced the process, and that is why you have seen the increase in the figure to what you have just mentioned, from a patchy below 1 million barrel per day to around 1.2 million barrel per day, where I'm not too sure of 1.5 million barrel per day reported by newspaper, but I believe that the figure had increased significantly above 1 million barrel per day. And that is what is likely going to bring about increase in the total value of trade in the last quarter of the year. Because there is awareness to everybody about the contribution of the crude oil in terms of the export earnings for foreign currency and the impact on the stability of the naira. So government is trying to put it in shape. So the process has commenced with the, as we have said earlier on, government contracted to private organization surveillance and other measures to curb crude oil theft and by implication crude oil production. So it has even recently, you can see that the National Security Advisor put up a stakeholder meeting and constituted a committee that will help to bring about lasting solution to crude oil theft in order to bring about improvement in the volume of crude oil production and by implication in the value of export, which will definitely bring about increase in the inflow of foreign currency to the country that will now help to stabilize the currency and will impact the economy positively. So the government is on the right track. It's a process. It's not something that will be achieved in a day.
All right. Well, talking about the number, according to Bala Wunti, he actually revealed that Nigeria's oil production as of December 6th, that was yesterday, he said the number as of yesterday is 1.59 million barrels per day. And Bala Wunti, by the way, is the Chief Upstream Investment Officer at the NNPC Upstream Investment Management Services. That's the NUIMS. Bala Wunti is in charge of that particular unit, and he was the one that gave that figure yesterday that we made about 1.59 million barrels per day. But away from that, let's look at the agricultural imports now. Agricultural imports grew by 10.4% to 512.91 billion naira, beg your pardon. And what do you make of Nigeria's continued dependency on importing agricultural products?
Well, it is not good for us. It has not been like that in the past. But because the problem of insecurity, insurgency, and the likes that has affected farming communities and the agricultural productivity. So that is why a vacuum must be filled, because everybody must eat. Agricultural commodities are essential commodities that are needed for everyday living. So definitely we have to at least use imports to support for now. But I believe that the trend will be reversed over time, because government is aware that it is not a good development for the country. So government is working on how to ameliorate the problem of insecurity so that agricultural activities, in terms of the farming communities, can return back to farming and that productivity can increase when there is.
Yeah, you can go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay.
Oh, I thought you still wanted to say something. All right, talking about agriculture, what do you think can be done really to address the issues in that sector? I know you've talked about, you talked about insecurity. We also look at the Anchor Borrowers Program. We saw how that the federal government invested a lot into that program, but it would seem that, to some extent it's failing, because some persons who took the money thought it was free money and they never had the plan of returning the money, and, a whole lot of controversy around, non-remittance or not of that particular money. Talk to us about, what the federal government is doing in this sector, how well you think the federal government is doing it, and what more must be done in the area of insecurity. Can you hear me? All right, I guess that's connection issue. But of course, we've been talking about Nigeria's the import and export burden for the last quarter, that's the third quarter 2022, and we've been reviewing some of the numbers, looking at how that the oil and gas industry dealt a great blow to that figure, and we're also looking at the agricultural sector. For the oil and gas, we all know that oil theft, of course, is the culprit, and it would seem that the federal government is doing what it can, maybe it's best to address that particular issue. But in the area of agriculture, we've seen insecurity, the hydra-headed insecurity, and we cannot even tell what exactly the challenge is or how we can deal with it. We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation, or we'll bring the conversation to a close. Stay with us.